absolutely horrendous swamp ass tier mage changes for sure. Make sure you quote that. Mages have to be we have to be mad about everything. So these are terrible. Every change they made is the worst change that they could ever possibly make, and we will never recover. Mage is dead forever. Never play mage. Let us take a look at some of this stuff. So first off, let's go through the actual changes they did. So they did a whole bunch of talent repositionings. Aether Vision's been moved, Implication's been moved, Arcane Tempo, Charged Orb, Concentrated Power, Consortium's Bobble have all been moved. They've reworked Enlightened, which is kind of nice, to where instead of like while being above 70% mana or below 70% mana, it is now just a sliding scale. So if you're at max mana, you're getting 6% increased damage. 6% increased arcane damage. Yeah. And if you're at like 0% mana, you're getting up to 20%, or it's on some scale. It doesn't actually say where that scale is. Maybe we can assume this is still a 70% cutoff. So at 100%, you're doing 6% more damage. At 70%, you're doing 20% more mana regen. But we don't know that for sure because it doesn't exactly say. I like that better. So you get sort of like a smooth transition. It might be worse just for damage, but you didn't really play around Enlighten this tier, so we'll have to see how it plays out. Improved clear casting's been moved. Prismatic barrier, what did they actually do? I don't know. They changed some multipliers. I don't know what that actually is going to do. Reverberates removed. Static clouds removed. So basically, they just moved our entire fucking talent tree. that's what they did. Fire had a mana reduction on Fireball because fire generally has an issue when you start getting to higher and higher haste levels where it can actually go ooh, which is hilarious, dumb, but true. So they reduced the mana cost of Fireball. They increased the base damage cost or base damage of Flame Strike and reduced its mana cost. They changed Call of the Sun King here. So Call of the Sun King used to give you an extra charge of Phoenix Flames, which I believe brought you to 3, or maybe that brought you to 2, and like the tier set brought you to 3, but it gave you an extra charge. It's no longer going to give you an extra charge. Now they are very deliberately doing this and not giving anything to replace it, seemingly because they want Fire Mage to have to cast its filler more. So currently for like Frostfire Fire Mage, you basically never cast an actual casted Frostfire Bolt. You're using instant cast Frostfire Bolts from Frostfire Empowerment. You're using Phoenix Flames. You're using Fire Blast. And then in between all of those, you're using Pyroblast. So you're basically never casting anything that isn't an instant cast, which they don't really want to be how Fire plays. They also didn't want that to be how Frost played when it was just spamming Ice Lance. So they're very specifically moving away from this, and instead they're just giving it a damage increase and always critical striking. Again, we'll have to see how that plays out. I think that's probably a good change for the spec. It makes it less punishing for people who aren't good at doing it, but potentially it makes it more punishing because resource management actually now matters more. But we'll see how it ends up turning out. Damaging a target with Pyroblast or Fireball increases the damage it receives, so they gave you more ways to get control destruction because they realize you're probably going to be casting less Pyroblast, so have your filler do it as well. They increased the base recharge rate of Fireblast again to let you have fewer instant casts so that you have to cast your filler more. They reworked Heat Shimmer, I guess. I'm not really sure what this meant. Scorch damage increased by 10%. Damage from Ignite has a 5% chance to make your next Scorch deal damage as though your target was below 30% health. Sure. I don't think you played Heat Shimmer before. Maybe you play now, who knows. They reduced Hypothermia down to 5 seconds, so again, reducing the amount of instant cast you have by reducing Hypothermia by 1 second. Master the Flame now also buffs Fireball instead of just Ignite, because again, you're going to be casting your filler more, so they're trying to make up for that. Phoenix Reborn now gains a stack of Born of the Flame, which makes it sound like you can get 2 stacks, but it also gains 1 stack of Born of the Flame, and Born of the Flame makes Phoenix Flames refunds 1 charge on use. So this used to be, it just gave you 2 free charges that buffed it by 100%. Now you get 1 free charge that buffs it by 200%. So theoretically you get the same amount of damage while requiring you to spend one less global for that damage. However, you have one less instant cast again. So again, they're removing an instant cast from Phoenix Flames. They buff Pyroblast damage. You'll be casting less of them because you have fewer instant casts. They reduce its mana cost. They buffed critical strike chance when you fail to get critical strikes from Fireball, so that you're going to be casting your filler more, but it will only take 5 filler fireballs before you have a guaranteed crit. That's good. They just reworded Scorch. I don't know. Yeah. And Sun King's Blessing hardcasted Pyroblast deals an additional 20% more damage. Sure. Overall, we will have to see how it ends up playing out with like numbers, but I think it is a good change for the spec that they are making here for Fire to reduce the amount of instant casts. It's kind of degenerate to me to be a caster that basically never actually like stands still and casts. That's kind of weird. Or like has a cast time spell besides like hard cast Pyroblast for SKB. So I kind of like the idea of moving away a bit from all of the instant class. Other people might be mad because you're just less mobile, but Fire is already a very mobile spec. Even in previous tiers where you actually did cast your filler, like you're still a very mobile spec anyway. So I don't think it'll hurt that bad, but again, we will just have to see how it plays out. I'm not telling you how to feel here. I'm just giving you some slight opinions on some things that I see, but I even personally really don't know how it's all going to line up until it actually happens. Other people might tell you that things are going to be terrible or things are going to not. I'd kind of let that slide until we actually like see what goes on. For Frost specifically, they buffed the damage of Blizzard and they made it last 12 seconds instead of 8. They're trying to move away from Blizzard being this like maintenance spell in AoE all the time, which I think is a good change. It's interesting, Blizzard's cooldown is still the same, so you can now have multiple Blizzards rolling, which will be an interesting thing. You'll basically never have Blizzard not on the target, potentially, which gives you more Frozen Orbs, which is interesting. I don't know if they're deleting Freezing Winds or what. This says it's removed, changed from talents to uncategorized. Or, oh, they added a new Freezing Winds. So they removed the old Freezing Winds talent, and I guess this isn't a talent, it just buffs it. So Freezing Winds is just a baseline thing now that increases damage dealt by Frozen Orb to targets who are hit by Blizzard. So that's pretty much it. But I can't tell if it's actually a talent or not. Frigid Winds, I don't know, they changed the label or something, sure. Glacial Assault. Your Comet Storm now applies Numbing Blast, increasing the damage enemies take from you by 6% for 6 seconds. And additionally, Flurry has a 25% chance each hit to call down an Icy Comet. So they changed wording around, and instead of Comet Storm just like increasing your damage or whatever, it applies a debuff to the targets, which means that those targets have to be hit by Comet Storm. I don't know if that's how it worked before, or if it just gave you a buff. All right, Sunfury. Arcane. Conjuring a Spellfire Sphere now increases the damage of your next Arcane Blast or Arcane Barrage by 20%. That might cause problems. It's just gonna like... It's weird. They keep adding modifiers onto Arcane Barrage that are just... I don't know, it makes it difficult to tell... Like, they keep getting into situations where they might make it so Arcane Barrage is better to press than Arcane Blast, like at any time, which we had that earlier in the tier where you literally just spam Arcane Barrage. You didn't even care if you went with Arcane Blast because you could just spam Arcane Barrage at that point and lose like no damage because Arcane Barrage is so powerful. Again, like they're doing something where technically that you might see that situation again. So that was, I don't really like this change. Arcane Barrage hits very hard as it is. You're losing your intuition procs, but you're gaining 20% on Burden of Power for every 6. I think it's 6, yeah. 6 Arcane Blasts or Arcane Barrages. I think that also counts as Arcane Barrages. So every 6 casts in Arcane basically gets a 20% damage increase. I think it's gonna fuck up Arcane Barrage stuff. It's gonna make the multipliers very weird. Glorious Incandescence. What did this used to do? Consuming Burden of Power causes your next Arcane Barrage deal 20% increased damage, grant 4 charges, call down a storm of meteorites. Okay. So, Burden of Power now additionally summons a storm of 4 meteorites at your target. Each meteorite's impact grants 1 arcane charge. So it's kind of just a wording change, I guess. But maybe not, because if one of the meteorites misses, then technically you don't gain an arcane charge from that. I don't know how that's going to work. Yeah, it also doesn't say, like, is it when a meteorite hits any target it gains an arcane charge, or just one meteorite can give you 1 charge exactly. I'm assuming that's how it's going to work. So, like, no matter how many targets that one meteorite hits, it's only going to gain you 1 arcane charge. Because if it didn't, it would be super degenerate for, like, the top players. So somebody like myself would min-max the shit out of that if that's not how it worked. If, like, meteorites, because it drops 4 of them in quick succession, but it would be very obvious that there would be a time gap in between there where the first one hits, like, you gain charges, or even before that, if you have 4 charges, you spend an arcane barrage, you lose all of your charges, a meteor hits. If you have 4 targets there, you gain 4 charges, you spend arcane barrage, another meteor hits. That'd probably be the fastest you could do it because they hit pretty quick, but, like, you could definitely min-max that if you wanted to, and that would be certainly something that I would do. But I don't think that's how it's going to work. I think it's just like any one meteor that comes down, no matter how many targets it hits, gets 1 charge. So you end up with 4 charges afterwards when you spend. So it's basically just a way to refund your charges. However, those meteorites don't hit immediately. So this is actually going to kind of feel bad. Because the previous way it worked, like, you consumed Burden of Power and it immediately gave you the charges back. With how this wording is set up, it only gives you the charge when the meteorite hits the ground, which is like, I mean, the meteorites are like a meteor casted in Fire Spec, which is 3 seconds base fall time subtracted by haste percentage. So it's going to be like a significant amount of time before those meteors actually hit and before you get the charges back. And you can notice that if you play Fire and you play Sunfury and you get a Burden of Power and you use it, because each meteorite gives you Fire Blast reduction, which it says right here. They changed Fire Blast reduction from 1 to 2 seconds because they increased the total recharge time of Fire Blast, so they're giving you more Fire Blast recharge right here. But you can see it when you play Fire Sunfury. If you spend a Burden of Power, you have time to spend Fire Blast charges before those meteorites ever hit and give you charge back. Like, it's a decent amount of time. It's 1.5 seconds to like 2 seconds, which means in Arcane, this is going to feel really shitty because you're going to spend your Arcane charges on a barrage with Burden of Power, and instead of immediately getting 4 Arcane charges back, so the moment you start casting your next Arcane Blast, it's at 4 charges, the next Arcane Blast you start casting is going to start casting at 0 charges, which means it's going to be a really long cast time. It'll end at 4 charges. They should hit before it ends, I think. So it should still be buffed to 4. I believe that's how it works. It's at the point of the end of cast is what the damage and mana cost is, I think. But that's gonna suck. And if it doesn't even do that, like if it doesn't calculate damage and mana at the end of the cast, but at the beginning of the cast, it's gonna be even worse. So that's kind of bad. I don't like that at all, really. Sunfury Execution, which was very good for Arcane when Arcane Barrage was broken. This is just a wording change, really, for Scorch. Yeah. Okay. Excess Fire, I believe, just has wording changes. Let's see. Casting Comet Storm now causes your next ice lance to explode in a burst, dealing lots of spell fire damage. Frostfire damage, and grants brain freeze. So what was it previously? Reaching max stacks of fire mastery causes your next ice lance to explode, dealing way less damage, and grants brain freeze. So instead of reaching max stacks of mastery, it is now just when you cast Comet Storm. So that's going to happen way less often. Same thing for fire. It's now on casting Meteor. So it's going to happen way less often. They buffed the damage it's going to do by 100%, but I don't really think the damage on those really mattered. it was the procs that they gave you. So that's probably going to reduce like Phoenix Flames usage a lot for fire. It's probably going to have less impact for frost. It'll also be interesting if like it says casting Comet Storm and casting Meteor. Do they actually mean like when you hard cast, or do they mean when you get any cast of those abilities? So a Comet Storm, an Icy Comet from your procs for frost, for fire, the meteorites from Sunfury, the meteor procs that you get from like 25 Pyroblast or whatever. If all of those counted, it would be good. But it doesn't really sound like that. It sounds like they mean like when you hard cast, which does not sound great to me either. So yeah, we will see how that goes. So that was excess fire. So excess frost has been changed to just consuming excess fire. Huh? Are they like getting rid of like frost mastery and fire mastery? Because this says consuming excess fire. So consuming this buff with your Ice Lance or your Fire Blast causes your next for frost flurry to also cast Ice Nova, which then reduces your thing. So they come like back to back now instead of at the same time. So okay, so how this is gonna work is whenever you cast a Comet Storm, you're gonna get a buffed Ice Lance. When you spend that buffed Ice Lance, you're gonna get a buffed Flurry. When you spend that buffed Flurry, you're gonna get Comet Storm reduction. Same thing for fire. When you cast Meteor, you're going to get a buff Fire Blast. When you cast that Fire Blast, you're going to get a buff Phoenix Flames. When you cast that Phoenix Flames, you're going to get Meteor reduction back. So they've kind of made it so you have this like 4 spell rotation that you're going to do, I guess. For Frost, you're going to like, and you don't have to use them back to back to back, but they will be used in an eventual sequence. You're going to have a Comet Storm, and then eventually an Ice Lance, and then eventually a Flurry, and then eventually like you get Comet Storm reduction. For fire, it's going to be Meteor, Fire Blast, Phoenix Flames, and that'll be the ending. So 3 spell rotations, sorry, not 4. That seems weird. I don't know. I like the interaction of playing around between Excess Frost and Excess Fire buffs. You actually didn't play around them in most of the APLs, but you could have gains for playing around them. It was just harder and wasn't much. But there would be certain situations like you don't have a Brain Freeze or a Flurry cast, or you don't have a Flurry charge at all, and you have Excess Frost, and your Comet Storm is like at 12 seconds, so you want to use your Excess Frost very quickly to get your Comet Storm back, but you have an Excess Fire proc, so you just send an unempowered Ice Lance to get a Flurry, to send the Flurry to get a Comet Storm, and group died. So there's definitely ways to play around stuff that I enjoyed, but I don't know, apparently other people didn't. Yeah, I don't really like the changes there, to have to just like play them back to back instead of having them be like optional to play around. But yeah, it is what it is. Frostfire Empowerment gives you max benefit of Frostfire Mastery, refreshes duration, and agresses you. See, this is weird because then you get both buffs at the same time here. So whenever you use your Frostfire Empowerment, you get both buffs. So you would be forced to spend Excess Frost first before you spend Excess Fire, because spending Excess Fire gives you Excess Frost. That's dumb. Like, this doesn't make sense at all. This is a really dumb change to me. They've forced you to use these buffs in this rotation now. You use Excess Fire, you use Excess Frost first. If you have both of these, you must use Excess Frost first, and then you use Excess Fire, because it doesn't say that this stacks. So you have to use this or else you munch it. So then you use this, and then you have to use this, and then you have to use this again. That's a 4 spell rotation. That's a 5 spell rotation whenever you do this, because this is going to be consuming. So you have Frostfire Bolt for that. You have, do this as Frost. So Frostfire Bolt, then you have Flurry, then you have Comet Storm, then you have Ice Lance. Comet, wait, no, you already gained this. Okay, so it might be one less. Frostfire Bolt, Flurry. You already have excess frost, so then this is Ice Lance, and then this is Flurry again. So you get your 4 spell rotation. That's fucking dumb. And that gives you whatever 10 seconds off of Comet Storm. It looks like they actually did this intentionally. This used to be 10 seconds for Meteor and Comet Storm, and they reduced it to 5, and it's still in the PTR as 5. So, people said that this was unintentional, that the reduction went from 10 to 5 because they had done a hotfix previously to keep it at 10 and 5. But on PTR it says 5 seconds, so who knows what's real. So yeah, I hate this. I hate this change entirely. Yeah, I think that's terrible. I don't think anything changed there. Oh, talent position change, talent position change, talent position change. So they changed around some of the talents in the hero tree for whatever reason. All right, anyway, Spellslinger. For Frost, you get 1 less Arcane Splinter, or for Frost Splinter, sorry, sure. Splintering Sorcery. When you consume Winter's Chill or Fingers of Frost, you get a Frost Splinter. That's a good change because it makes Ice Lance actually worth pressing. Because Ice Lance just like wasn't worth it, and they nerfed it because you're going to be rocking more of it. That's fine. And they nerfed Splinter Storm as well because you're going to be rocking more of it. Okay. Mass Barrier, mana reduction, that's nice. Yeah, so Arcane just had a bunch of shit moved around, but the Frostfire stuff seems pretty terrible. The Burden of Power stuff also doesn't seem great, to be honest. Both, actually, Burden of Power and Glorious Incandescence both seem terrible. So, like, the hero talent changes seem pretty bad. Spellslinger's fine, but Frostfire and Sunfury seem pretty bad. The class changes, I don't know, Fire seems okay. Frost didn't really get anything. Arcane... Let's take a look at this. What does the new tree look like?
Transmitter next
old?
CDs.
Let's go Arcane. Thanks, Weekora. Alright, so here's current Arcane tree on live. And here's the new one. So let's see what we have. So right off the bat, they've switched this up. They're reducing the number of talent points you need to spend in Gate 1 because the Gate 1 shit was like so powerful. So that kind of makes sense. I kind of wish they would combine some stuff so that we have less shit to choose here. But it is what it is. So what's this? Choices between Amplification and Reverberate. Arcane Missiles fires additional missiles versus Reverberate, which you don't take currently because Arcane Explosion's terrible. Do you take Amplification? What does Amplification look like? It looks like Star Search for druids. Is that a talent currently? Oh, yeah, okay, it's right there. Yeah, like baseline required. All right, so I mean, you're definitely gonna take that. That's actually just gonna hurt you if Arcane Explosion ever gets good again. That change is going to hurt you because you can't take both of those at the same time, and like that is probably really big for single target damage, and even for AoE if you're taking Harmony or not Harmony, Aether Attunement. There. So yeah, I don't know. That doesn't seem great, but okay. Concentrated Power. Your missiles channel 20% faster, and clear casting makes Explosion echo for 40% damage. Where is that in the other tree? Looks like that, but it's not that. It's there. So again, something that you took baseline. I mean, you're going to have to take all of these, right? Because you need 8 points in the top. 1, 2, I think something like that. If you took away this, you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, you need 8. So you need 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Depends on scaling, but probably 8 and probably 9. So I mean, they put 9 talents up here instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So they took away 2 talents, which you can see just by they removed this and they removed this. So yay, you have to spend 1 less point there. I guess, I don't know. These are usually terrible. They put tempo and big brain on a choice node. So they moved tempo from there to a choice node with big brain. Again, like they're making you worse there. That's not great because these are 2 talents that you take basically baseline right now, and they're making you choose between them. So that's not great. It's AoE, charged orb is down here, so this is like the more AoE side, which is weird because Aether Vision is here and Aether Vision is baseline for everything. This is also baseline for everything, always. Arcane Surge doesn't deal any damage, Presence of Mind sucks, Energized Familiar just depends on tuning, you may take it, you may not. Impetus is required, that's required. Dematerialize is currently good. Again, so this is more AoE stuff, so Arcane Explosion does more damage. Dematerialize has a chance to spawn an Arcane Explosion, but they don't generate charges. When you consume clear casting, it does 10% additional damage. Yuku is pretty good. You're gonna pick this. You're gonna pick Evocation, guaranteed. Illuminated Thoughts, if it's not bugged, you pick it, but if it is, who knows? So again, they went more AoE over here, more single target over here because they have Consortium's Bauble over here now instead of over there. So AoE is more right side. So Arcane Explosion is more right side. Yeah. So let's just go single target for right now. Pick that. You need to pick more stuff because they removed talents here. That sucks. That doesn't matter in single target. This would give you a benefit. This would give you a benefit. If this isn't busted, that would give you a benefit. So pick that one. Alright, so then you get this. You're going to be going to here, so just take this, and we'll just... What's Nothing Musicians? Why would that ever... Is that actually what's in here now? That is the worst talent pick ever. Why would you care about increasing your damage after Touch of the Magi detonates? That's awful. That's a terrible talent. Needs a rework. So you pick those 2, guaranteed, always. And then the rest is based off of scaling, really. This is almost always good. Or Barrage depends on the talents. Depends on the mastery benefit. Which I don't think they rework mastery. So this just increases damage they take from all of your abilities. Probably pretty good. Time Warp was good. Aether Attunement's good. That's good. Harmony. Could or could not be good. I mean, they just moved more damage into Arcane Barrage, so maybe. And then you've got, like, how many left? 2? So Time Loop's pretty decent for 2, or Barrage maybe. For single target, you don't need anything else up there. So it would just be like Time Loop, maybe High Voltage, depending on your charge regeneration, but I don't think you're gonna need it. Well, Spellslinger might more than Sunfury. Spellslinger doesn't have any plannable charge regen, because it would just be rocks. But Sunfury does with Burden of Power, so Sunfury actually has a lot more arcane charge generation, so you wouldn't play this in Sunfury almost guaranteed. Let's just pick that for now. I don't know, that. These are usually dog shit, right? AoE. Maybe, but mana is usually not that important. That might be useful. But even to get that, like, you have to take one away from that, and you have to, what, drop Aether Attunement or Harmony? Or Bombardment, which is just not going to happen, so... I mean, that is a talent tree. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that. To get Charged Orb, you just drop that. Pick up Charged Orb if you're going AoE. You might drop that. Pick up Orb Barrage. Or you drop Dematerialize, pick up Orb Barrage, or you drop Time Loop maybe. Oh, you drop Consonia's Warble Bauble for this, for sure. I hate that just happened. Do that. I lost one somewhere. But I mean, you could pick that. I mean, if you wanted single target for bosses, you could do that. That doesn't matter, and you probably pick that. So this might be like your, oh, missiles. There you go, yeah. Damn. This might be your AoE build, something like that. Yeah, not a huge fan of that. But let's go to the tier, because this tier looks very good for Mage. Talent changes be damned, and hero talent changes be damned. The tier looks like it could be quite powerful. So the main thing, let's read this, but we'll take it. 2-set bonus. Your damaging spells have a chance to hit a jackpot. No idea what the chance is, but a chance. Granting you clear casting and 8% increased spell damage for 12 seconds. So you get a free missiles and you get 8% increased spell damage for 12 seconds. It doesn't say that you get the increased spell damage after you consume the clear casting, so just assume that randomly you will get an 8% increased damage, which makes it harder to play around, which again means better players will benefit more. A weak aura will be very useful for this. That tells you when you get the buff, so you know when you have increased damage and maybe you want to dump some more damage into things. Casting Touch of the Magi always hits a jackpot, so you will always get this damage buff while you're in Touch of the Magi. Touch of the Magi is 12 seconds, damage buff is 12 seconds. That's very intentional. This also guarantees you another clear casting, guarantees you one clear casting going into a Touch of the Magi, which is very useful because I have had multiple times in keys where in my mini burn with just Touch of the Magi and not Arcane Surge, I haven't gotten a clear casting the whole time, which means I never got the Magi Spark Explosion. And that sucks. So that's actually very useful. What's up, Panda? The Holy Paladin, they got gutted? I did not see that. I didn't look at anybody's stuff except for Mages, and then I saw all my guildmates complaining about their random shit in Discord. But yeah, this is actually really good. Reasoning being, if things stay the same as they have been for Mage for a while now, you do like all of your damage during Touch of the Magi. Basically all of it. 8% increase on where almost all of your damage comes from is a huge fucking increase. And that's a 2-set. You get a clear casting proc, which is nice, good. Guarantees you get a Magi Spark Explosion in Touch of the Magi. And you get 8% increased damage every time you go into CDs. That is just a beautiful, beautiful tier set. This is great. This is like a 4% like damage increase from just a 2-piece or something like that, because you do like 50% of your damage in your CDs over 12 seconds. So this is huge. They're making H-Pallys to be HOTS healers now? Bro, H-Pally has fallen so far. H-Pally, when I started this game back in Wrath of the Lich King, was the standstill spam Holy Light healer. And I liked that being so different from a lot of the other healers. Like long cast time, just huge hitting heals. Then when I finally got to play Holy Pally again was in BFA, when they were full on melee instant cast. Fuck, I don't even remember what the spell is, but the one that you can put onto like 8 targets, so then all of your healing is done on those 8 targets as well. They basically turned him into an instant cast melee disc priest. And you had massive like wing CD reduction from Corruption. Shout out Corruption, greatest thing ever. That's when I played Holy Pally, and I was like, this is way different than I thought it was going to be, but it was fun. And now you're telling me they're making Holy Pally's druids? That's fucking stupid, but we won't cover that for now. We're talking mages. So, mage stuff. This is a great 2-set for Arcane, I think. Damage wise, play style wise, they just moved more damage into your CDs. Arcane already does nothing outside of their CDs. This just puts more of it into CDs. So maybe not great, maybe too powerful, because burst windows are very beneficial in this game. Almost always you want at least somebody who can do burst windows, whether that's in keys or in raid. So hey, lock in Arcane for next tier. And then they say when you hit a jackpot, you also gain Aether Attunement. This could be impactful or could not be impactful. It may make it so maybe you don't play Aether Attunement if you know you're going to get one within CDs, or it may just double up and be really good because you naturally get one and you can force get one from actually using. So you can get 2 in every CD set, basically, if you play it right. This is huge for AoE. So I had actually done some testing myself and found a pretty big gain. Well, big gain, like 1.5% gain in AoE for Arcane Mage by forcing you to only spend your like Aether Attunement in Touch of the Magi if you could, which basically meant that if you were going into a CD set and you already had Aether Attunement, you know how you would usually spend Arcane Missiles when you have a clear casting to get Nether Precision before you go into your CDs, so that your barrage on your barrage Touch of the Magi would be buffed by Nether Precision. So I actually figured out that if you change that to instead just spend your clear casting on an Arcane Explosion, doesn't even matter if you don't hit anything, like if you're 30 yards away, just so that it consumes the clear casting and gives you the Nether Precision buff for your barrage, you actually do more damage in AoE. The reason being, you are then going to spend your Arcane Missiles Aether Attunement in Touch of the Magi, which means it's going to count towards your Magi Spark, and part of your Magi Spark is that it explodes for more damage based on the damage you do. So it takes the damage that you do in your first 3 spells, and then it blows up for that damage. So if you're using an Aether Attunement buffed missiles into that Magi Spark, it's going to do more damage. Your missiles are going to hit Touch of the Magi harder, so Touch of the Magi is going to hit harder. Basically everything like doubles up by using Aether Attunement inside of CDs versus like before CDs, if you can. Now it's a niche scenario, for in most sims you only get to do it once throughout the entire sim. Actually the average is like 0.9 times or 0.8 times per sim, but even in those short amount of times, like it was like a 0.3 to 0.5% DPS increase over 5 minutes, but in like short pulls, one CD section, if you got it off, was like a 1.5 to 2% DPS increase. This is guaranteeing you an Aether Attunement, so you don't have to do that anymore. But it gives you the opportunity to get 2 Aether Attunements in basically every CD set, so that's probably very good for AoE. Single target may not really matter that much. Most of the power is probably coming from the 2 set. But yeah, interesting Arcane Mage 2 set. Probably not great for the playstyle. Numbers wise, probably be pretty good. Stay hydrated, homies. All right, fire. Same thing, your damaging spells have a chance to hit a jackpot, reducing the cooldown of combustion by 3 seconds. I don't like this. Casting combustion always hits a jackpot at 200% increased effectiveness, which to me means 9 seconds, because it starts at 3, 100% increases 6, 200% increases 9. I don't like this at all, playstyle wise. I'm really sick of combustion reduction. The more reduction that you get on combustion means balancing wise, they have to make combustion less impactful. Because if you just have combustion up 100% of the time, that means you're just balanced to always have combustion, which means combustion doesn't matter. It means it's very weak. If you only have combustion up for 10 seconds every 2 minutes, combustion hits hard as fuck, which is what Fire Mage used to be. And what Sunfury Unleashed Inferno is supposed to be. So I don't like this. It means they're gonna nerf combustion, and combustion is gonna be worse most likely. Yeah, that's how I feel. I don't like the playstyle. Numbers wise, who knows if it'll be good or not, but I don't like the playstyle. And then when you hit a jackpot, your damage is increased by 15% for 7 seconds. If you would gain jackpot from combustion, the duration is increased by 100%. So it increases your damage for 15 seconds, and if it's because you use combustion, it will last for 15 seconds instead of 7 seconds. Sorry, 15% for 7 seconds. And if you use combustion, it'll make sure it lasts for the whole combustion. Yeah, I don't like it. I think it's just going to make Combustion be a wet noodle, and Fire just continues to be an uptime spec, where if you don't have uptime on Combustion, you do bad damage, instead of like getting a good use out of Combustion, like changing the course of your fight. Feels bad. It's got no burst. It sucks. Burst is fun. Your damaging spells have a chance to hit a jackpot that fires a Frostbolt volley, dealing damage to your primary target and additional targets. So they just didn't even give you the changes, anything in your play or like buff or anything. It just does damage when procs. That's super lazy, but okay. No playstyle effect whatsoever. Icy Veins does it at 100% effectiveness every 10 seconds for 30 seconds. So Frost got no playstyle adjustment, and Frost got like no changes because Frost doesn't really have a dev. So sorry, Frost. I don't know. You have to cast Blizzard less in AoE. Congratulations. But your tier set has no impact on your rotation or playstyle at all. It just does damage. All right. Such is life. Somebody has to be a loser. So overall, yeah, I don't really know how I feel about this. I like the Arcane tier set. I hate the Fire one. Frost is completely uneventful. I don't like the Arcane talent tree rework. They're making you choose things here that I really wish you didn't have to choose. Which makes you gain points, I guess, because this was like you always chose these two, at least currently. So you gained 1 point there. You have to spend less here, so you spend more here, but they just move the same talents down. But yeah, I'm not really a big fan of that. The actual data mine stuff, the class changes for Fire, I think are actually really good. They're the only ones that really got class changes. The hero talent changes, not so great. So overall, yeah, we're probably not too happy about a lot of these changes. Let's see, you got like bad hero talent changes, bad Arcane Mage talent tree changes, bad Fire tier set. You have good Arcane tier set, good Fire class changes. Yeah, we're 2 up, 3 down. That's not how you want to be.